welcome back to Main Street Living. Quincy, Brandy, soccer or football, as the rest of the world calls it, has been the most popular sport around the globe for decades. And interest in women's sports has been on the climb lately as well. I love it. Girl power.
Heck yeah. And with the Women's World Cup just a few months away now, attention is starting to focus on these incredible female athletes and the host countries of New Zealand and Australia.
Oh, yeah. And our very own Danielle Alvari was able to catch up with one of the producers of the new show focused on Women's World Cup. Actually, the Women's World Cup called The Contenders. Ooh. This is going to run right here on YurView. Take a look.
Danielle Alvari here. Very excited to be joined by the producer of the show, The Contenders, Alex Zaia. Alex, thanks for joining us on Main Street Living.
No worries. It's great to be here.
As I mentioned, you are one of the producers of a show focused on the Women's World Cup called The Contenders. Tell the people what they'll see on this show.
So we'll be previewing all 32 nations. So we'll be looking at their previous World Cup history, their form leading into the tournament, and we'll be having a look at the lineups for all the 32 nations. And we will also be looking at some star players, profiling some star players that will be competing at the Women's World Cup. So yeah, just having a look at what they've achieved in their throughout their careers and how they're looking heading into the tournament. We'll also be looking at the growth of women's football as a whole. So we'll be talking about the booming crowd numbers, increased investment in the game. We'll be also looking at the host nations and how they're preparing for the tournament. So we'll be looking at things like the mascot, ticket sales, the match ball, just those little sort of those things leading into the tournament. And we'll also be having a chat to Melissa Barbieri, who brings a wealth of big tournament experience. So she'll be talking about a range of topics and issues about the Women's World Cup and about the women's game as a whole.
That's amazing. And you touched on a lot of things I want to ask you more about. I think one of the things that really draws people into sports are the storylines. So what are some of the things we should be watching for in this year's Women's World Cup?
I think leading into the tournament, the US are once again looking like they're going to be the team to beat. So,
the Contenders.
Yes. So being the two-time defending champions, they're obviously aiming for a historic three-peat of World Cups, which has never been done before in the women's game. So I think that's going to be one of the main interests at this World Cup. And then also whether some of the European nations can potentially knock the US off their perch. So we've got the European champions England, who have obviously seen as the USA's main threat for the title. And then we've got nations like France and Spain and Germany, who are also stacked with talent and who are also viewed as some of the main contenders to win the World Cup. In England's case, they're obviously going through a bit of a rough trot at the moment. They've had a couple of serious injuries to key players such as Leah Williamson and Beth Mead, so that's obviously impacted their preparations. And it's going to be interesting to see how they can cover those injured players. And then also, looking ahead to the co-hosts, Australia and New Zealand, heading into the tournament in different sort of different expectations, I guess. I mean, New Zealand have never won a Women's World Cup game, so
sort of an underdog.
Yeah, so their form leading in hasn't been great. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. And then Australia, obviously, they've got a pretty good team, and being the host nation with the crowd behind them, I think they'll they've never also gone past the quarterfinals. So they'll be pretty keen to go deep into the tournament. And I think with the home crowd behind them, I think they're capable. And also, this World Cup is the first World Cup with 32 nations, up to 24 in 2019. So it's obviously eight nations competing at their first World Cup. So it's going to be interesting to see how competitive they are. And I think it's great that there's more nations competing, because it gives them an opportunity to strut their stuff on the biggest stage.
For sure. And it seems like you mentioned there's more interest and investment in women's sports. Where do you think that's coming from? Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think it starts from some of the main TV broadcasters. I think, I think they're just, and also some of the bigger clubs in Europe, they're now starting to invest in their women's teams. Mm. And it's just improving the standard of play in the women's game.
Yeah, more coverage, more fans. And I know that your host of the Contenders is a former player. What can you tell us about Melissa Barbieri?
Melissa Barbieri has competed at 4 Women's World Cups. So she knows a thing or two about competing on the biggest stage. She's won 86 caps for Australia across her 13-year international career. Mm-hmm. And she captained Australia to our first major international title for both men and women, the 2010 Asian Cup. So,
will we be seeing any of the very well-known American players on the show as well?
We will. So we'll be profiling Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan, 2 of the mainstays in the US side for a number of years. Both were very instrumental in the US win the 2019 Women's World Cup 4 years ago, and I dare say they'll loom large again in the 2023 tournament.
Yes, and you've given us a lot to be excited about. We were very excited to get to hear from you today. Alex Zaia, producer of the show The Contenders. Thank you so much, Alex.
No worries. Thank you.
Wow. I know that was right up Danielle's alley. She's a sports girl at heart.
Oh, yes, she is. And new episodes of The Contenders will run Tuesdays at 8 o'clock and 8:30 p.m. right here on YurView. You can find out all the details on YurView.com.
Stick around with us. Next, we're going to talk about how you can help your kids grow up great.